Hey everybody, it's a bit late right now for me to be recording a video, but I feel there's something I want to address here. It's been a few months since I actually did this video, so forgive me if there's a lot I'm forgetting what I said. I didn't rewatch it, but there's a gentleman who commented today. I think he was trying to be polite, and I was trying to be polite in my reply and ended up being 2 paragraphs long, and I apologize about the length. It's about The Last of Us. And this gentleman says that I shouldn't be playing the game with the mentality of it should impress me. With its complex story, its varied gameplay, and right there, I'm going to say that's not a problem, because I know what he's saying, and I do agree. If I approached every game like that, I would hate Dead Island Riptide, which I love. I love because it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's repetitive, but it's ridiculous, let's face it. Sorry, one of my guinea pigs, Dovahkiin, is chewing on his cage bars and trying to get Donatello's attention. It's kind of distracting. Hey! Hey buddy, cut that out. They didn't get fed yet. They're going to get fed here in a bit. Sorry about that. I wouldn't like Splatterhouse, which I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, you like Splatterhouse. Yeah, you know what? I also like Red Dead Redemption. I also like Skyrim. I do like these games where it's a bit more in-depth than just mindless violence. The reason The Last of Us didn't click with me is trying to avoid ranting about it again. I'm trying to be a bit more mellow on this. The story could have been a lot better than it was. And with proof of that, I'm going to offer up a few comparisons to Walking Dead. You see, with Walking Dead, you're told the story through Lee's point of view. You meet all these people as he's meeting them in real time, including Clementine, the person you're going to build the most intense connection with, Kenny, the other person you're going to build an intense connection with, as well as the other survivors who, depending on your actions, may die or, well, die. But there's an emotional context there. You hate Larry Jenner for a reason. You aren't just introduced to him and go, oh, you should hate him. That's my big problem with the story in The Last of Us, at least in the beginning. As soon, like after the theater, after your daughter dies, you're there 20 years later, and it says, hey, we gotta go after this guy. We hate him. He's the bad guy. I don't know who he is. There's no context there for me to even have an emotion. It's just, you're pointing me in the direction and saying, kill that guy. Now, yeah, that works for, say, Call of Duty. It works for Battlefield because they tell you they're the bad guys. And they do kind of try to offer up some context as to why. Now, I'm not saying they do it brilliantly, because honestly, they don't all the time. In fact, it's very rare when they do. I think the best example in any of the Call of Duty games of why you should hate the villain is Makarov in Modern Warfare 2, because they give you a mission where you play as a CIA agent undercover, and you see the atrocities he's doing. That's context. That's why he's the villain, or not why. That's pointing to an indication of, this is the bad guy, you should hate him. With this guy, it's as soon as you take control of Joel 20 years later, here's this guy, we should kill him. Okay, I don't know who he is. Here's this woman, she's her partner. Okay, who is she? I thought for the longest time she was my ex-wife. And I was wrong. I mean, there's no context. And the way I would solve this, I don't know if they'll do this in the second story DLC, excuse me, second story DLC, which if they do, I might end up picking it up again to go through it, is if instead of focusing on the Joel Ellie story, and I'll get into that in a second here too, if they focused on his past as a bandit, from, after his daughter died to 20 years later, if they focused on that, because it does jump around, I don't know if it's years, I think it's months, or at least the seasons. If they had done snippets that were important in his life in that 20 years, I would have found that vastly more interesting. That's just me. I appreciate that context both as a gamer, well, not both, but as a gamer, as someone who reads books, as someone who's an avid movie watcher, and as a writer myself. I want that context there. The other thing was, it's not that the gameplay should impress me. It's the fact that I can cite several instances where the same mechanics, if not similar, were done vastly better. And this felt like it was a backtracking on that. And I'm going to point to a completely different game here. I'm not going to say The Last of Us should exactly be like Walking Dead. It should have its own identity. But if they're focusing on survival, how come all the weapons really do feel well, a lead pipe, I admitted, is going to feel cumbersome. But it's going to be stronger than punching a guy. You know? Taping a pair of scissors on a lead pipe isn't really going to be effective, but at the same time, you're going to jerry-rig something if you're thinking on your feet. I can respect that, I can understand it. But what I can't understand is, again, wow, one of my broken airsoft guns here, he's aiming his gun, but he can't keep steady aim. Now, I guess you can attribute that to, oh, well, he's on the run. If you're in stealth, though, if you're not breaking it and you're trying to shoot someone in the back without them noticing you, you're not going to be moving around that much. I know they're trying to account for breathing, but at a close range, I'm still going to hit the guy. And that was a problem I was having. Now, I'm also going to shoot myself in the foot, no pun intended, and say a lot of this may have something to do with the fact that I was pretty far from my TV, I'll admit that. And again, part of the reason I'm trying to approach this more calm now is I have had time to think about it. I apologize to anyone I offended in that video because I was going through a few things mentally too. And that does have a lot to do with my rant. But, that being said, even when I got close to the TV to shoot a guy who's up close, I would still miss. At the same time, if a guy shot me, I'm knocked down on the ground immediately, but I shoot him in the same exact spot that he shot me, and he's standing there like, ow! No, and he's not wearing body armor. It's like if you're playing, say you're playing Red Dead Redemption, a guy takes a shotgun to you, blasts you, you fall over, most of your health's gone, because it's at close range. You do it to him, and he's standing there kind of inconvenienced. It works in the old first-person shooter games, because that's where they're trying to build up the challenge, you know, like Duke Nukem 3D. You had guys that could be killed in one shotgun blast, and then you had guys that could be bullet sponges. But that was the challenge at the time. It wouldn't work now. And then, you have the melee combat, where you have a pipe, yeah, it's going to be a bit cumbersome, it's going to be really clunky to carry around, but it's going to be stronger than a fist. It's going to hurt more, it's going to knock you on your ass if you're hit in the face or the back of the head. Why were the fists a more effective weapon at knocking people down? Again, that's my experience with the game. Now, if you liked it, that's on you, you know? Go ahead and enjoy the game. I'm not telling you, oh, you should hate the game because I hate it. What I'm saying is, honestly, right now, the biggest gripe is my story, because I'm writing a book right now trying to make sure that the characters are in a cohesive whole, and it's a bit difficult. I do have to do a lot of backtracking because, unfortunately, my work schedule and a few other things doesn't allow me to go, oh, you should sit down and write. I'm not going to remember everything. When you've had years to work on a game, though, and in the beginning of the game, it introduces characters that you are out of context, to me I'm not trying to say it sounds lazy, but I wish the context was there. Now, as for the game, games trying to impress me a bit. Now, there are games out there that are not meant to impress people. Painkiller, off the top of my head, is not meant to impress you. That's supposed to be mindless shooting. Far Cry Blood Dragon is meant to be mindless, and that's a rant on its own. That's mainly because I find it... Yeah, I'll get to Blood Dragon later, possibly, sometime. But there are games, mainly AAA titles or the big budget titles, that are meant to get you thinking. Evocative storylines that do impress you. Now, if a game's not meant to impress you, then what's the point of releasing the game? Yes, there's the fun. I'm not saying, oh, all games should impress you. Because, you know, there are games that are fun. But there are games where if your story is supposed to be this cohesive, natural whole, then on some level they are trying to impress you. If that makes any sense. If not, let me know. I'm going to try to figure out how to word that better. And a good example of that is BioShock Infinite. There are so many elements to the story that, yes, it's complex, but it fits. It's open-ended. You know the characters. Yeah, they kind of go, hey, Comstock's the bad guy, go kill him. But you start to see why. And even then, it just doesn't go, Comstock's the bad guy. Well, it does in the beginning, say he's the bad guy, kill him. But when you start learning more, and it goes to the chapter where the Vox Populi are killing all the founders, they're just as bad as Comstock. When the coin is flipped, they're just as bad. That's... Sorry about that, busy street still. That's where it fits together for me. Now you have Red Dead Redemption, again, another story that's like, hey, Bill Williamson's the bad guy. But you start to get the context through John Marston's past. With The Last of Us, I think his name was Bob. Yeah, it was, because one of the comments was, before it was deleted, laughing about me saying, who the fuck is Bob? He's in it for about 5 minutes. And I had to be told that he stole the weapons. Okay, in a survival situation, if a guy is not stealing my weapons, then he's creepily loyal to me. Or I'm doing something really good for him. I want to know more about that. I want to know his motivations. And that is very nitpicky, I would admit, you know? But I don't think that was the appropriate jumping in point for the story. On top of that, a lot of my impression was tainted with the fact that I was told how I should think. And that was another reason I was ranting really bad. Like, I was told that I'm going to build this emotional connection to Ellie. I didn't like her that much. And I think part of that was because I was told how emotional the story is. Now, when I go back and play through it again, actually beat it, and I do apologize for the preemptive rant, I just needed to vent, honestly. When I do go back, if I do go back, and I find out later on that, yeah, there is that emotional connection, yeah, I'll take it back. But at this current time, I don't feel that connection to her. I just think she was obnoxious still. And I've met people who thought Clementine in The Walking Dead was obnoxious, and yeah, I can kind of see why they would think that. I think she's frickin' adorable, but I'm not going to hold it against them because there are points like where she's just too cute to be realistic. Like the salt lick thing, or asking if she's been putting bugs in Duck's bed. But she's a kid. With Ellie, her childhood's essentially ripped from her. And she's still acting like a kid at points. Well, a teenager. And I can see where it's her trying to keep a hold of her identity while surviving, but it felt really disjointed to me. It felt unnatural to me. Anyway, I'm hoping I explained it well enough. I know it sounds like, oh, I'm defending my stand, and in a way I am, in a way I'm not, because 6 months ago, I was a completely different person. I still don't like the game, but I'm still willing to I'm more willing to give it the benefit of a doubt now than I was back then, you know? And I think, again, I apologize because I really didn't give it a fair shake when I did. I was about a third way through the game, and I had done everything. And I can see where the gentleman from the comment was saying, okay, it's not meant to be about the varied gameplay. I think my view on that, if it was paced a bit more evenly, it would have been vastly better in that regard. If they didn't rush and introduce all the mechanics, I can kind of see why they would, because you're going to need them later on. But it felt rushed in that regard, especially as long as the game was. And that's why I'm proposing, if they don't do this as DLC, maybe do a prequel for next-gen systems where it explains that 20-year gap between the prologue of the game and the main events of the game. But even then, I'd probably play that before the first game anyway. I don't know. That's just how I feel. And again, I'm not saying you should hate the game. You guys feel free to enjoy. I like a lot of games people hate. So I'm not going to hold it against you for liking The Last of Us if I don't. But there will probably be another video if I do go back and play it. I'm going to try to be a bit more calm. I know I wasn't calm with Beyond Two Souls. If you haven't seen that yet, be warned. But on my playthrough, there's just so many writing problems on it that it was ridiculous. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now. I will be doing another review shortly. Actually, I beat this yesterday and I want to mull through it, of Call of Duty Ghosts. So, and this will be my first Call of Duty game that I reviewed on video. So yeah, stay tuned. And again, I apologize to anyone I annoyed or offended. Not my purpose on that regard, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm done. I'll see you guys later.